The Great Depression sucks. Anyway, Channel 52, bringing you your daily Great Depression news. Stories today include Eleanor Roosevelt making yet another trip to female workplaces. She's been doing this to promote job opportunities and to improve equality in the workforce. She visited farms, Indian reservations, and coal mines around the way. She said she is working to create a newspaper called My Day to explain what she encountered on her most recent trip. In other news, her husband, President FDR, has been promoting equality in his own way. African Americans were the first to lose their job during the Depression. They suffered a high unemployment rate and were denied public works jobs. FDR, by aiding African American needs, is winning their support in the Democratic Party as we speak. He asked African Americans to help him advise the nation. Making up the Black Cabinet, they have done things so far in the ranks of creating a National Youth Administration on Negro affairs. However, first African American government agency leader Mary McLeod Bethune complained that there is still no anti-lynching law. The Florida teacher claims that the president is afraid to enact this as she believes he will lose Southern support. Nonetheless, African Americans have slowly begun to use their votes, win higher level government jobs, and gain more equal treatment. Next, coming at you is Nat Devon with job opportunities.
The Depression so far has mostly affected the woman. Many housemakers have to now stretch their family budgets as a company would rather hire a man instead of a woman, rarely having both in one family being hired. In some cases, a company won't hire the wife of a husband already hired for a firm. Also, there has been much more nurturing from wives to husbands in these tough times. Now, to Edward Caulfield with the weather.
Hey there, ladies and gents. Today, the weather is once again rather terrible. It's been like this for a very long time. This type of weather started back in the early 1930s. You may be wondering what this weather outside exactly is. This weather phenomenon is called a dust bowl. In scientific terms, this means high winds that carry the topsoil away, leaving behind dust. The dust was picked up by the wind, then creating a dust storm. This stretches from Oklahoma to New York today, sources say. The topsoil has been taken away from overgrazing of cattle and plowing by farming, with the wind then swiping it all. This dust storm has been blowing away shutters and even protectors from doors. The storm's current effects are widespread and consist of entire farms being blown away. Trees have been uprooted and so have farmhouses and fences. Blinds are shut and doors are slammed, but still dust manages to get on the food we eat. Poor farmers are leaving their homes to escape this horrible tragedy. However, sources say they've not been accepted at their new homes. If these newcomers found jobs, they've been for little pay. This is the very disappointing news of the current acceptance in our society. Back to you, Donald. In recent news, the Indian New Deal was signed. First, some background information from our field reporter, Robert Decker. To you, Robert.
The Indian New Deal, as mentioned, was signed into law by John Collier, a longtime Native American rights activist. The Indian New Deal gives Indian nations more control over their own affairs. Through this law, Collier now heads a Bureau of Indian Affairs. He has begun work to end the government policy of breaking up Indian land and promotes more control by these lands from natives. He has also talked about what he calls the Indian Reorganization Act, to expand Indian reservations and give the Indians the ability to organize corporations and businesses. Finally, natives are finding jobs in this year Great Depression with the Indian Emergency Conservation Work Group. They protect soil, control immigration, and regulate land development to prevent another Dust Bowl or depression. However, not all minorities are being treated fairly.
Breaking news, Robert. In San Antonio, Texas, there has been a strike at a pecan shelling plant. Let me remind you, 80% of the workers are women. As I reported previously, the pay of these workers has been lowered. Emma Tanaka then headed a strike with the shellers. Sources say many of them have left their jobs. I have asked Emma about this, and she replied with this: I have a basic faith in the American idea of freedom and fairness. More news when it comes. Back to you, Robert.
That was a sly move, Donald. Interrupting me like that. Just lock your doors tonight. Anyways, the Chinese, Japanese, and Filipinos have been highly discriminated when it comes to job opportunities by Americans when jobs are scarce to them. Sometimes even violence is used against them as a form of superiority. Because of the lack of jobs, FDR has made a law to transport Filipinos out of the U.S. for free as long as they never return. Roosevelt's administration has been strengthening Indian governments by letting reservations organize corporations. He has been doing this with such administrations as the Indian Emergency Conservation Group, as previously mentioned. Now we have a guest, Elmer Walker, who we will be interviewing for the specific details on our topic.
Hi there.
Oh, hey, Elmer.
Is this the cue card?
That is the key card.
Mine's a little banged up.
And that's a
but it's
camera
okay.
right there. Just
That's
so
the
you know.
camera?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the camera.
Okay. Can it see me?
It can see you. It just as clear as it
That's
sees you.
amazing. Okay, you
I
go
know.
ahead.
So, Elmer, how has this immigration deal affected you and your family?
Well, it has been very difficult to find a job space. Though I do not condone violence and harsh treatment, these are still targeted at foreigners every place I go searching for a job.
What exactly do you mean by this statement?
Every day I hear yells in different languages. Ooh, that one hurt. And similar cries by workers pushing the immigrants out and telling them to head back to their own country. So far, I've heard at least 400,000 immigrants have been sent back as illegals, even if they were American citizens.
What places do you go to where you encounter situations like this?
Does that big one say normal?
That big word does say normally right there.
Okay.
This
Normal?
word also says it and is.
Oh, I didn't know this. I was making me make some more. Normally, it is when my family and I head to Texas and that area, around about southwest and western United States. Most Asian immigrants reside there, so expect tons of discrimination at school, for jobs, and in voting, especially the farm workers.
Thank you very much for your time, Elmer.
No, you laughed at me. I'm out of here. But my pleasure, bud.
Thank you. Eddie, what's going on in the numbers? Thank you, Donald. Well, the odds are not in the workman's favor, and neither are the numbers. African Americans have seen this suffer the most. 50% is their current unemployment rate, and that is 2 times the national average. They're also denied public works jobs and are being refused serving at food pantries. On a positive note, thousands of African Americans are learning trades such as building fences and other conservation projects through the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. On another note, our entertainment numbers show that a staggering 76% of Americans attend movies at least once a week. Good job, guys. Sources say that in the far future of 2005, the number is projected to be only 9%. A ticket today costs on average 25 cents. There has also been a 34% increase in the number of movie theaters in the United States from 1932 to now. Americans have been spending a lot of cash on amusement recently, including 83% to said movies. In fact, my favorite show, The Lone Ranger, has seen recent spikes in viewing. Here to comment on what specific entertainment is out there for our viewers is Nat Devon.
Many artists portray the hardships of the Depression life. For example, recently a painting just finished called The American Gothic portrayed an Iowa farmer and his daughter who looked determined to surpass the hardships of the Depression. Also, The Grapes of Wrath was written by John Steinbeck, telling the sad stories of the Okies passing through the mountains trying to build a new life in California. Many movies were also created recently. Movies tell optimistic stories about happy families and cheerful citizens. Some examples of movies just finished being produced are called Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Also, averagely 20 million listeners have been tuning into radio segments of The Lone Ranger whenever a new one comes out. This number is substantial, but we hope that these movies and radio segments will help the average person when it comes to lightening up their day. Tune in tomorrow and you will see a live reading of War of the Worlds of our very own Orson Welles, sure to fool some of you.
Thank you very much for joining our news section today. We'll also see you tomorrow on Channel 52 at 5 p.m. That's all for now. Have a magnificent day, and goodbye.